Okay, so today we've got another repair video. This is a Surface Pro 4, belongs to a friend of mine, and she stood in it, and obviously that wrecked the screen. Nice, there's the camera and yours truly. This is a very reflective surface, as you can see. Yeah, shaving this thing. But I'm not sure whether you can really see the screen is cracked down there, but more importantly, it's really bowed out from there. There's a big crack that runs down here and up here, so the screen's absolutely wrecked. Although it does still work, and the touch even still works to a large extent. But it needs to be replaced. So I have bought a new screen online. I'll put a link in the description underneath as to where I got it from. So the first thing to do is obviously get the screen off. And the way to do that is to heat it off. There's an adhesive around here that will hold the screen in. I don't think that the chassis is bent too much, although because it's being stood on, and that's quite a bow out there, isn't it? Certainly that is going to make it a lot easier to get the screen off, because I don't have to get that initial, which is always the difficult thing, is to get that initial thing. And although there's a gap, I see there's two gaps in over here, so that'll be a good place to get in there. But anyway, of course, I don't have that problem because this is completely open here. But from the chassis point of view, it doesn't look very bent. So that is a bit of good news. Yeah, no, that's not bent at all. So that is good. We'll have a look inside, of course, and see what it's like inside. But yeah, so let's fire up the heat gun and see how well we can get this off. So I'm going to start with a fairly low temperature. I'm not quite sure what temperature to do here. Obviously, I don't want to do anything too hot because I don't want to fry any of the electronics that are in here. And I believe that there's quite a few ribbon cables and sensitive things around the edges. Camera over here, of course, is going to be sensitive. So don't want to do anything too high. We don't want to do anything with too high a temperature. Warm it up all the way around first. And so what I'll do is, if this is not working very well, then I will increase the temperature. Okay, so that was being a little bit too hard with the spatula there. So I've just completely smashed the screen. Just as well, this is one I'm getting rid of. I had watched a few videos online about doing this, as one does, and it looked a lot easier online. There we go. So after a fairly disastrous attempt, I thought this would come off a lot easier. So it hasn't. I've got the main part of the screen off. Right, so that gives me better access now. Hopefully I haven't damaged anything too much. I think with the screen removal, I probably didn't have enough heat on the screen, and I definitely wasn't gentle enough. I mean, the screen is far more broken than it was when I started. If you watch some of the other videos online about this, you'll see people who managed to get it off, and they all do talk about being very gentle. So yeah, maybe this is a lesson of a Friday afternoon is not the best. However, of course, the main thing is, this is not going to be used again because it was broken anyway. So, it's quieter. Now, the big problem here that I'm seeing before I do anything else on here is this battery, and I'm not sure if you can see bowed that is, or how what's the right word, how much it bulges out. It's bulging, so you can see when I put the ruler there that it bulges out completely, and that makes me wonder whether, you know, did this bulge out because it was stood on, or did the screen break because the battery was bulging out? This battery is going to have to come out, so I'm tempted to take it out because there's no way I can reuse this battery. There's definitely something wrong here. In order to take the battery out, it's a good idea to isolate it. You'll see I've got a piece of paper stuck in there underneath the motherboard and the connection onto the battery. It's a pretty weird way of putting it together, but I guess they had their design ideas and decided that it was the best way to do it. The battery needs to be heated from the back to get the sticky tape off, and then you can see that it slots out fairly easily. The next thing to do is just remove all the little bits of glass and plastic and rubbish that was still left after the rather disastrous removing of the screen. Now that is that bit essentially ready, so I'm going to put that to one side. I have here the new screen. And what this is the bit that I didn't quite realize, which I hope I'm going to be able to sort out now, is that you'll see there's some connectors here and there's a connector here as well. Get that into shot. Yeah, we go. Connector there and two connectors here. And on the old screen there is those bits. Let's see, there is a plastic cover on that so that I can keep that safe. I whip out the old, very damaged, very sorry looking screen. And there you'll see we have some bits. So we need to get this guy off because that will go into there. And it's a clip on that way. And then we need to get this off. And what concerns me about this is that that goes onto here. I don't know why why don't they just supply those bits with it? So this bit I'm taking off here is the touch control, and it is a small circuit that is double taped to the side or the back of the screen. You just need to heat it up to take the circuit board off the back of the screen. It's attached with double-sided tape, and then you can transfer it onto the new screen, and the same goes for the cable on the other side. It wasn't as big an issue as I thought it would be, but it certainly added to the time. Just flip the cable up, they just unflick very easily like that. And the next thing is to get the ribbon cables off on the right hand side. The two black strips that you can see there, that they just click up, they clamp on in order to keep the ribbon cables tight. So just get your plastic spatula underneath it and lift them up, and then you can pull those two cables out. So then this part is just about trying to get this circuit off now. It's the touch control circuit off. Just applying some heat, and you'll see in a moment I put some alcohol down the side as well, just to try and help melt the glue, and you'll see the whole thing starts to come off rather well. Then just a bit of a clean, get a bit of the gunk off, and ready to transfer onto the other screen. And then the last bit to get off is this one here. So I'm hoping that this is also just a tin can. That's out. There we go. Right, so that hopefully is the last of the very smashed screen. That is going to get tucked back in there. This bit we know goes on here. Goes on, and this tin can goes over the top. There we go. Let's sort that one out. Slot in there nicely. We'll slot these in now anyway. Those two in there, and then the tin can. I'll have to put the tin can back on this stage. Hang on. Those with the BDI will notice that I've left out the connector that goes on there, which is rather important now. Which way did this go? So that way. What's this one for? That went down. There we go. It goes there like that. Okay, now we can put the tin can back on. There we are. Right, so that's all that. And then when we get back to it, let's just see how well this fits on now, which is up and which is down. That's going to fit on there, but see what I can do is that I should be able to put the screen on. Because where does that go? So this goes, that bit goes in there, and that bit goes in there. Fan and heat control goes on again, if I can remember how that works. It goes on like that and over the battery, so it goes like that. I'd love to be able to put the screen back on and then put the battery in. Of course, that is not possible. I don't know how much this is charged. That's very sticky already, so I don't want to stick it down on there until I've got this in. It would, of course, be a lot easier if I took this board out. I ended up having to take the motherboard out in order to get the battery in. It was something I didn't really want to do. There's so many little connections and bits and bobs to take out. But I just felt that getting the battery in was, especially lining up these bits over here that I'm showing you here, that little hole there, and it's got to fit into a spike on that side, and it's got to go underneath, and everything's sticky, and you don't really have much of a chance to wiggle stuff around. So I did take the decision in the end to take as much of them, or take the motherboard out and get the battery sitting in there properly before trying to do everything else. I really wish Microsoft had thought about doing it some other way that the battery was easier to do, but anyway, it didn't end up being that much of an issue, and actually taking the motherboard out was not that difficult. There are a few bits you have to be really careful about. As usual with all these things, they're small and delicate, and yeah, but at the end of the day it did work and the battery was in. And after finding one or two hidden screws, I did manage to get the motherboard out very easily, and that laid the way to putting the battery in. So the battery just had to be lined up with these two spikes for either side of the battery, and then there's a spike just underneath the connector. And then just firmly pressing the battery onto the old double-sided tape that was originally there. I didn't take it off because it was sticky enough and didn't need replacing. And now it's just the arduous task of putting the motherboard back in with its 101 connections and screws and everything all over the place. Again, it wasn't too difficult. Just takes a bit of care and a bit of remembering where everything went. But otherwise, it all went back in without any problems. Right, back after lunch. Got my trusty coffee and my trusty Spectrum mug. So this guy here is the connector for that, and you can see when I pulled it out, it'll focus on that. a bit far away. When it's focused on that, I pulled the 2 pins out because I hadn't disengaged the lock on that. And crash. It broke off. Little SMD connector for the speaker broken off straight off the board. Another thing to sort out. But fortunately, it didn't prove to be too difficult to get back on. It was a little hard to get the SMD to reflow back on, and so I did end up soldering it back on by hand, and that seemed to work fine. So what looked like a disaster in the beginning turned out to be okay. This is just putting the cable back into the plug part, which was an easy thing to do. It's like putting a Molex connector together. So that was fairly easy. And then the moment of truth after putting back most of the other screws and having a bit of a sanity check around it was to put the screen on without sealing the unit again, just to see if it works and if there were any problems at that stage. So this was a bit of a nerve-wracking moment. At this stage, or by this stage, it had been a very long operation. This patient was definitely on its last legs. But I think we'll see that we managed to get it sorted. Okay, that's the screen plugged in. And that's that. So in theory... Okay, that is really good news. The Surface lives a bit. Here we go. Fantastic. So the last bit was just to get the heatsink and fan back on and put the double-sided tape around the edges of the Surface and push it down and hope for the best after that. But so far so good. Everything seems to be working, and after an initial what I thought was going to be a major disaster of both the screen cracking far more than I thought it was going to crack and the speaker terminal coming off the board, it's turned out to be okay.